everyone, and welcome to Some Like It Classic. I'm Tami Goveia, and once again, I am joined by event designer extraordinaire, Edward Perotti.
Hello there.
Hello there. We had such a great time last month covering, what did we cover? Oh, we covered The Thin Man.
Thin Man.
Right? The Thin Man, the martinis. And then Ed went in and said, how do you throw an Art Deco Thin Man kind of soiree? And so we thought, once again, month of May, we'd pick a movie, and then Ed would come in with his fabulous, wonderful ideas about how to throw a soiree together. You know, just kind of based on the movie that we chose. And Ed actually chose the movie that we're going to talk about today. Ed, do you want to tell him?
Well, if it's any indication so the audience actually knows how much of a drama queen I am, we needed the ultimate drama queen movie, Mildred Pierce.
And the funny thing is, you know, month of May, Mother's Day, yes? So we were thinking, you know, a film about moms. And Ed comes up with Mildred Pierce.
Well, it was like my childhood.
Oh my God, Ed, can't we do I Remember Mama with Irene Dunn? That's what I'm thinking. And you walk in with Mildred Pierce, and I'm all, it's a fabulous movie. And, you know, talk about a fabulous mother role. So I was all in. So whether you are of the Irene Dunn, I Remember Mama spectrum, or, you know, Mildred's not on the opposite end. You know, Mildred, she's a good mom. She just made some bad choices, and she can't control the fact that her child is the devil incarnate. So yeah.
I love the movie. I truly do. And I love the fact that Vita, the devil incarnate. Honestly, if you think about it, Mildred Pierce could have been the sequel to the Bad Seed. Because Vita is definitely the bad seed. But, you know, what's funny is every time I watch this movie and I think about it, she's actually a phenomenal mother.
Ed, hello.
She just is the ultimate enabler in every relationship she has. And it comes down to, she just wants to be seen. And I mean, you can't help but, if you've read the book, you know, I mean, there's so much, obviously, they left out. But when you watch this movie and the way Joan did it, you kind of just want to go hug her. You really do. And then also slap the crap out of Vita.
Yeah,
but,
no question.
You know, it is truly a perfect May Mother's Day movie for the moms that want to realize that they are more than their children and more than their spouse and more than their home.
And not have to apologize for it, not have to rationalize it or defend themselves. And what mother doesn't want what's best for their child?
Mine. That's a whole different story.
Sometimes what they think is best, meaning, you know, I'm giving my child everything I didn't have, which is a very prevalent way of raising children. I didn't have this, I'm going to make sure my child does, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, there's extremes, you know, you don't go to college and how to become a healthy, good parent. It's just life throws you in there and you figure it out and you do the best you can. To your point, Mildred is a good mother. She really is a good mother. And honestly, I felt so bad that I totally forgot about the role of Kay. So I was rewatching it. I think this may be the third time I'd seen it, but it had been a while. And I'm all, who's this little girl? So Mildred, her husband Bert, who is played, don't tell me, wait, I got this. Bruce Bennett is the actor who portrays her husband as we open up into the film. They have two daughters. They have little Kay She's what, 5 or something, maybe 6 or so.
Yeah.
And then Vita, who's the older daughter. Vita's probably 12 or something when we open, or 13 maybe. And things happen, and Vita becomes the center of attention. In Mildred's world, Vita, her world revolves around her daughter Vita and making sure she wants for nothing. And
I might almost argue that with you a little.
that Vita,
I think Vita was her whole world from the beginning.
No, you're right. That's probably part of what broke them up.
Because Kay was self-sufficient, and Kay loved her mother unconditionally. It was like Kay was the only true love.
Then that's such a slippery slope. That's not fair.
No,
to say little Kay doesn't need my attention because Vita needs me.
Well,
Vita's
the needy one, right? Vita's the needy bitch.
Right. And that's so, I see that so often. It's like, oh, so-and-so can take care of themselves. This one needs all of our attention.
Yep.
Do you like that?
That was good. It was on pitch too. That was really good.
I was practicing. but I want to talk about, let's back up for 2 seconds and talk about Michael Curtiz, the director of this film. Obviously, he was coming off of, a few years before Casablanca. His resume, there's no question that Michael Curtiz is absolutely considered one of the foremost best directors when it comes to classic Hollywood. However, do you want to talk about some of the drama between he and, I don't know, pretty much anybody he worked with?
I mean, that could take up all of our time, and then
I know
next one as well. I don't know. Part of me really does want to pull some things out, but the other part of it is it's still going on. We haven't learned anything, right?
Well, no, I mean, to be fair, we've made progress. There's a lot more women now behind the camera.
Correct. But behaviorally,
there's still a lot of work to be done. But
the behavior, the mansplain mentality, all of that. There's no doubt he was talented in what he did. But what's interesting is, like, when I look at Casablanca and I look at Mildred Pierce and I look at these movies, great direction. But to me, those movies, because they were black and white, were made by the team, the ancillary team. He was the project manager, but let's give an Oscar to whoever was the lighting designer in these movies. The way that house, or as they called it, bungalow, was lit, and how it just shifted the mood, and then how with the restaurant just went completely polar opposite. Right, and how it was just bright and shiny and all of that. I don't, because Joan had her issues. Let's talk. We can go into that. But I'm horrible to say, and I apologize, but I'm kind of done talking about the. Can I cuss?
Yes.
Perfect. I'm tired of talking about the male assholes of old Hollywood.
Why are you tired about it?
Just because we've learned nothing.
But we have.
No, we have not. Social media has helped expose it, but have behaviors actually changed? We would slip right back into it if given the opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I remember seeing Gina Davis give this fantastic. I mean, she's got an incredible organization, and it's all about just fixing that kind of thing, and inclusion, and putting women in the places where they deserve to be in the film industry. And she talks about when they did Thelma and Louise and how it was a blockbuster, and every woman in the industry said things are finally going to change because this film shows that a women-led film can make money? And she said nothing changed.
Nope.
Nothing changed. So I'm not arguing that there's still a lot to be done, but I'm going to continue seeing the glass half full and take the small wins because is that kind of behavior, from directors and what have you still going on? Absolutely. But I guess what I want to focus on is, despite the animosity between Joan and Mr. Curtiz, she ended up winning an Oscar.
Well,
and I am no way saying that, well, that's what you need. You need to berate somebody. You need to degrade them and humiliate them in order to bring out their best performance. That's bullshit. That's complete bullshit. But to Joan's credit, the professional that she was, and there's other women, you had Olivia de Havilland, you had Betty Davis, who, regardless of the atrocious circumstances they had to work under, brought out their best performances because of who they were.
Do you think that some of those stories, and not begrudging and talking down about what was done or what was said or how people were treated, but in order because Joan always dealt with her own perception of herself in Hollywood, right? Is there a possibility that maybe he put that behavior on steroids with her in order for her to be able to convey that complete broken kind of, I need attention. I will do whatever it takes to, I'm not fighting for my husband. I'm going to let him go because he's going to come back to me. And, I'm going to give Vita everything she wants because she'll love me for it. Or I'm going to bake more and feed people more because that food makes them happy. They'll love me. She was a solid, strong woman. And did that attitude break her down enough to make her that vulnerable and read that vulnerable on screen? Because I read her as somebody who was desperate.
What's fascinating is, well, first of all, Curtiz didn't just have this kind of behavior with women. He did with Errol Flynn. He did it. It looks like, from what I've seen or read, that was just who he was. And it was his own, let me bully you because that's just who I am and what have you. Anyway, Barbara Stanwyck wanted this role. She pitched herself. She says, I am Mildred. I know what it's like to be kicked around and have everything taken away from me and, learning to stand on my own 2 feet and make it with no one's support. And she fought for that role. But Joan also felt the same way. I think somehow this role meant so much to her because it resonated. It resonated with her.
Well, it's a part and a character and an emotion that at that point, I don't think I've seen her do, where Barbara Stanwyck had Stella Dallas.
Absolutely.
Right? Which nothing comes close to. Honestly, we should have talked about Stella Dallas as well from a mom's perspective.
Oh, from a mom, yeah.
Right? That ending scene could never be replicated. But Barbara had already shown that side where I don't think Joan actually did. And I do think that's also what resonated with the audience.
Yeah.
Because it did solidify her from the glamour girl, the women bitchy, that whole thing, to then this broken individual.
Yeah.
Who just craved love.
It changed her career.
Changed
her career, yeah.
I as much as I love Barbara Stanwyck, I can't see her. I could see her do the role, but I don't see it having the longevity that it has with Joan.
Absolutely. I completely agree. I completely agree.
You know, and then the rest of the cast, I mean, other than Vita and other than Eve Arden, who
Can we just swim in Eve Arden for just a little bit?
I would have loved to have been her, you know, gay best friend.
Please. Her comedic timing
Yes.
she's just so brilliant. Like when you see her name in a movie, you just know she's gonna be amazing. Like I don't care what the rest of the movie is about because I know Eve is just gonna be amazing.
And her voice.
Snarky.
That's no matter what she says, even if it was "I love you," it would have a little snark to it.
Yeah.
Just because of the voice, and you gotta love that.
Well, my favorite line, seriously, Ed, of the movie is, "Alligators are onto something. They eat their young."
About that.
Yes, that is hands down my favorite line of the film because everyone around Mildred can see that Vita is just poison. It's like, honey, it's not your fault, but she's poison. There's something not right with her. So yeah.
Well, and the other is Little Butterfly.
Yes, I know, but it's just.
They made her into her Gone with the Wind character, or
I know
vice versa.
it's stereotypical. I know, it makes me crazy, but she was adorable. I loved her.
She was adorable, but to me, it would have been. I mean, they already took so many liberties with the story that wouldn't it have been interesting to have had that character be the icon of the strength, the female strength that then Mildred draws from? Because it is, I mean, let's face it, you do not mess with a Black woman and her family. You don't, right? And they just played her to type, and it was so disappointing that Eve was kind of her Jiminy Cricket. Eve Arden was kind of her Jiminy Cricket in this, but she needed another one. She needed one at home.
But did she?
Yeah, she did.
Did Mildred? No, I think Mildred. I don't think having a strong female role in Mildred's life, it would have diminished the strength that Mildred had. It would have diminished what she had to do.
I don't know. I love the idea of somebody seeing everything Vita's doing and calling her out on their crap, even if it was privately. The whole thing with Vita pulling the maid outfit out, or the not the maid outfit, the waitress uniform.
Waitress outfit, yeah.
And putting that out and just assuming it was hers and playing that whole thing is, I don't know. I would have, and maybe it's just me in today's world, wishing that it would have been and I'm sorry for saying this name out loud and putting them in that Black maid role, but that Viola Davis strength of just looking Vita up and down and just like,
But you mean putting putting Vita in her place.
Vita in her place.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, but again, yeah.
Because Vita was doing all that crap behind her mom's back.
For sure.
And you know that Butterfly saw it. She was at home the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah.
She saw what was going on. It's like somebody other than ripping the checkup slap moment needed to push Vita harder.
But what difference would have made?
It would have made the audience really enjoy it. There is something about comeuppance and karma.
Yes.
And I mean, I do really love the ending, right? Everything about that ending where the look on her face was, I am no longer enabling this. I'm done. You're right.
Yeah.
She owns it. And the fact then that they show her walking away into the sunset onto the steps with her ex-husband was that whole thing of, this is the moment I claim my life back.
Can we talk about Zachary Scott, who played Monty?
Sure. Even back then, my gaydar was going off, though.
But still, he was just so, I loved him in the role.
Very suave,
Yeah,
very handsome,
very dandy.
very dandy.
Right? He was a dandy of sorts.
He walked the line of swarmy dandy.
Well, he didn't. No, he was plain and simple swarmy dandy.
Well,
and everyone. But see, I think people around Mildred did tell her, Vita, stop. Wally told her. Jack Carson, he's amazing. He played he bugged me too.
Yeah, all he wanted to do was sleep with Mildred, and then when she
constantly
wouldn't,
touching her. I was like, dude.
Yeah.
Like, okay, like back off, buddy. But anyway, that's another thing. I just, and obviously Anne Blythe, who played Vita, that's another thing that you had talked about, was that just the cast was just, you really cared.
Yeah.
About everybody and everything that was going on, because the cast was so fleshed out. I wish Eve Arden's character, what's the name of it? Ida. I wish she'd had a little bit more.
Yeah, because I mean, she went from being a waitress to training her to running the restaurant, or just being the drinking compadre.
Well, Mildred's in Mexico. She's running the restaurants. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. And maybe it is this whole idea of, a little Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of what the hell's going on in the wings.
Yes.
Right. When they're in Mexico, what's going on at Mildred's place? What's going on with Vita? And also, I don't understand how her daughter died by going swimming in the reservoir one day.
Well, no, didn't you hear? Okay, so Dad comes over to pick him up, and I'm thinking, okay, something's going on. And then when she came back, she was hospitalized. She had pneumonia, so stuff was already happening.
But 24 hours. I mean,
she's 6 years old.
A soap opera would have given it at least.
Suspension of disbelief. Hello, McFly.
I'm like, a soap opera would have given. Days of Our Lives would have given it 3 months.
Oh, I know. And you would have been like, just kill the baby. Kill him. Come on. I'm done with the storyline.
But no, I mean, there are, when you watch this movie, there's so many iconic shots that just, you see them replicated over and over again, right? The way the staircase scene was shot with the check, and how, I mean, that was straight out of a Broadway playbook.
Yeah.
Everything about that scene was, in fact, almost the entire movie could translate very simply onto Broadway. And their movements were very theatrical. Their body placements were very theatrical. There was that not campy drama, but just that exaggerated. I mean, Joan Crawford in her eyes, right? And those eyebrows and everything, just how they would just kind of bug out a little bit. Yeah, exactly. Right. It just, I can't do it because, I'll get more wrinkles and we don't need it anymore. But there's just something about, and this is to his credit, something about how he rehearsed it and blocked it and everything felt very live performance. Like, I could see that live.
Yeah.
And I felt like they were, the first time I remember watching it as a kid, it was like they were there, that you were actually sitting and you could see, you were watching them do this right in front. Well, it's on a television set, so yeah, technically they're doing it in front of me, but it just felt like there was no fourth wall. And that, once again, goes back to your DP, your lighting team, the costumes. I mean, to see Joan at the beginning without those signature looks. Of course, near the end, she's got them.
Yeah.
Which was a little disappointing. It's she loses everything, but yet she's still walking around in the fur stole. Right? It's kind of like the movie does this complete 180 or 360 that she starts with nothing, kind of ends up with nothing.
Well, no, not really.
Except herself.
You know, when Monty is no longer part of the picture, that all kind of goes away, right? Because
but then well, and maybe this is once again the book plays in my head with a lot of things.
I don't know how it differs from the book.
So, oh my God, what's his name? Business partner again.
Wally.
Wally steals the entire business.
Shut the front door.
No, seriously, he steals the entire business.
So
he ends up with nothing.
Oh. Well, no. So they gave it more of a Hollywood ending, sort of.
Sort of.
It's not good for Vida, obviously. But,
correct. Well, it's very satisfying for me for Vida.
Absolutely. But if they'd wanted a Hollywood ending, then everything would have been fine and what have you.
Correct.
So Wally. Oh.
And it's all because she wouldn't sleep with him. And so he had been doing this little by little when she was not in the business.
So was Monty a character in the book?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, everything else kind of plays out as is, but they don't go into the whole Wally and the business and stealing it. And I mean, just all of it, because she's not around to run the business because she's too busy with the family, with Monty and with everything else going on, which is when then Eve Arden's character is telling her, you need to come back. You need to do this. And so I apologize because they get confused in my head of which one was which. I do kind of wish that they would have done that, because that would have been groundbreaking in old Hollywood. It would have really pushed the envelope of kind of how women are viewed, or how women were viewed back then. Right? It's like, okay, you know, I'm a guy, I can just take it away from you. No big deal. You know, but God forbid that they show real. You know, can you really make that many pies in your own home kitchen? And deliver them to downtown LA on the bus?
I don't want to know.
Yeah, right. But it is definitely, people need to watch it to just understand people, understand why motivations and why people do what they do when it comes to family.
Yeah.
You know, we all have dysfunctional families. We all do stupid things for love, or under the guise of love,
right?
Not realizing that what we need at the end is really just ourselves. And to me, that movie points it out completely, that all she ever really needed was her own strength, her own self. And she would have told her husband, fine, go with her.
Yeah.
Don't
and
need you.
She would have been able to impart that strength onto Vida.
Yeah. You don't need a man and his money. You can earn your own. You don't need, right? Because all Vida wanted to do was be the victim and take the easy way out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Mildred didn't do that.
It's interesting. Oh, go ahead.
No, please.
I was just thinking, you know, the film is one of those films where you could watch it several times and glean something new.
Yeah. Yeah. Or just stare at the picture or the poster. You stare at the poster. I look at her face on that poster, the original poster, and you're not quite sure what the movie's going to be. Because they made her a little glamour, but then it's a little dirty on the poster, and it's a little rugged, and then you've got the silhouettes and everything of everyone else. You're kind of like, what the hell is this movie about?
Yeah.
Right? It's
a little femme fatale. You're not really sure. Is this a noir? Is this what is this going to be about?
It became a femme fatale. Really, just it wasn't her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So anyway.
And TCM actually aired Mildred Pierce over Mother's Day weekend.
I wasn't crazy. It is a Mother's Day movie.
You weren't.
Although we need to hint to them next time. It's like, do an entire day and do Mildred, do Stella Dallas. You can go ahead and do your Broadway shows translated into film.
But they did do a day of mothers.
Did they?
The only ones I remember, because I watched I Remember Mama with Irene Dunn, because I remember that book, reading it in high school and just loving the story so much. I was watching the movie, I was like, "Ah!" And then I think right after that was Mildred Pierce. Like, talk about juxtaposition. Like, okay. And I forget the other films. I don't remember the other films that they aired, but yeah, they did dedicate a Saturday to moms.
See, I would love to hear from the audience on their favorite mother movie.
Yeah.
And I don't care if it's horror, I don't care if it's comedy, drama, classic. I'm just really curious because I can think of maybe 8 or 9 off the top of my head,
Yeah, there's
which
so
I
many.
know there's a lot more, and maybe there's not. But I'd be really curious on what your audience thinks are like the best mom movies.
Well, for folks who will be watching this and listening to this as an audio podcast, please make a comment below and let us know, what is your favorite Mother's Day film? Or what is your favorite film that has to do with, where it's centered around a mother and the dynamics surrounding her. It's such a personal experience, right?
Yep.
And we all have our stories that we bring to the table regarding that. So yeah, I'm just as curious as you are. But what I'm really curious about is, how are we going to throw a party based around all of this drama?
Enter the drama boy. So when I look at the black and white movies, well, first off, I think it's important to really let everyone know that home entertaining and home soirees are so much more on the rise than going to restaurants now. It is, and I love the fact that everyone's like, oh, the new trend is this. I'm like, it's not a trend. People have always done it. I grew up doing that every Sunday night at my grandparents' house, right? It was kind of almost a rite of passage thing, but it is, for the younger audience, it's coming back full force. So embrace it and don't overthink it. But the beauty with black and white movies and finding those to translate for inspiration is you don't have to go literal. Like when I look at Mildred and I look at the restaurant, right? It's very bright, it's very airy, and it appears to be very white. In my head, my creative head, I'm thinking, no, because there was something kind of homish about the food she was doing, right? All the pies, the fried chicken, the pot pies, the spinach. It was just good, wholesome, all-American food. I think Mildred would have a little pink in her. There's just something there, right? That I look at this and I'm like, how pretty would fried chicken and mashed potatoes look on that plate? It would pop, it would scream. So play with your imagination, right? If somebody got a hold of these movies and got Mildred as an example and colorized it, what in your head would you want that restaurant to look like?
Yeah.
This is how I would want it to look like. The white walls, the white chairs that they're in, all of that, and then with this just pink gingham and just this kind of girly vibe. And then really look at then the food of, is it chicken pot pies? Is it, right, which is, and just so you know, I actually took these from meals that I've recently had. So, because they are so good. But, going down that level of food without overthinking it. But you want to, with Mildred, if you use Mildred as your example, it needs to be a meal. Doing it as appetizers doesn't work. You need to sit people at a table and you need to give them that 1940s dining experience where you'd have this plate, half a fried chicken, a pile of mashed potatoes, a vegetable, and a salad and dessert, and you would pay $2, right? And really think through that, but take the levity in the colors, take the levity in the patterns. And this is also, when you look at Mildred, where last month we were talking Art Deco, Mildred is very LA Mediterranean Spanish.
Yes.
There is, with the, you know, the rounded lines and it's just that kind of whole vibe, right? Where that translation and that kind of move from the elegant Georgia style mansion that she ends up with, going then to the restaurant, which is, you know, greenhouse and look, and just this, I'm driving down Sunset Boulevard and there's an oil field next to me, and then there's Mildred's.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's, you know, how do you cross that over? And that's playing with patterns, playing with color, but muted, hands down muted, right? No,
Why?
because you do want to give a little homage to the time, right? Mildred would wear purple, but it would be dark, rich purple. It wouldn't be a bright, vibrant purple. That's way too garish, right? It would be sophisticated. It would be elegant. I mean, even when she's cleaning house, her character was pulled together. She might have one wisp of hair coming down, but the rest of it was all pulled together. So your table should match that. It should be very pulled together, but very simplistic. So I think if you think like that, and same with the food, right? Very pulled together, very simplistic, very approachable, because that is the other thing. And then, you know, you're gonna need a little whiskey or scotch, whatever is gonna make you happy. Have the bar there. And like this photo I love, because to me this would also scream her new home, right? She wouldn't have the opulence. She would have simple, clean, the pops of the orange, because you know there were orange trees in the backyard. There, she would still find a way. She wouldn't have a florist come in. She'd go in the backyard and she'd cut her flowers,
But
because
it's still elevated.
it's still elevated,
Yes.
but it's approachable, elevated,
Yes.
right? And that's the thing, especially when you look at any classic movie and you want to translate it, there is something about that approachable elegance and making it your own, right? Like I said, I don't see Mildred calling a florist, even when she had the money. I see Mildred going out to her garden and cutting her roses and putting it in a vase on the table, and be very proud of that. So that's, you know, and then the other thing is, honestly, shop your house. I know I have a ton of things that I've collected over the years that you don't use anymore, and you put them away because you don't want to throw them away, and then you forget about them 10 years later. But we all have vases and plates and bowls and linens that really could help. So why go out and buy something new? Because Mildred wouldn't have bought something new until she had all the money. And even then, it would be very simple. Monty would spend all the money and go,
Right, exactly.
Right? But Mildred wouldn't, because she'd be more worried about where the next paycheck is coming from, because she came from nothing and wants to make sure she doesn't end up with nothing.
You know, when you mentioned shopping your own house, you know, there's also that, oh, saving it for a special occasion, saving it for a special, you know, at the end of the day, every day is a special occasion. And saving anything, linens, plates, glassware, that bottle of champagne or what have you, celebrate now, celebrate today, celebrate with the people who are in your life today.
100%. I mean, you know exactly what Paul, and for the audience, Paul, my husband, would say. He's a stylist, and his clients make comments all the time, you know, oh, I saved that sparkle for the holidays. And his response is, why? Why? It's like, there are no reasons for you to go anywhere where you want to put a little sparkle in your life, right? I mean, I'm not saying go to Safeway with, you know, a a sparkle skirt and you know, your diamond earrings, but why is anybody saving anything? You shouldn't. Enjoy it. Share it with the people you want.
Yeah.
Once again, get the inspiration from these movies. Share what you have. Now, don't do it to the extreme that Mildred did, but you have all these things at your fingertips. Share them and share your creativity with them as well, right? Play with the lighting in your house, right? Create that mood lighting that was so prominent in this film. You know, it's like, why couldn't you turn all the lights off in your dining room and then uplight certain areas to give it some mood and some glow and some, there are no wrong answers. There's only right if it's coming from your creativity. And
You know, what's interesting too is, you know, Mildred and her daughter Vida obviously were two very different personalities. We had moments, you know, Mildred's personality was more of the beach house.
Mhm.
You know, she loved jumping into the ocean and walking in the sand and being surrounded by that kind of nature, and it exhilarated her. Whereas Vida needed the mansion and all of the accoutrements that went along with it. And I just really love the theme of happiness truly comes when you create you create a life that's authentic to you,
Mhm.
and not turn it into something that's going to please. In this film, it was to please her daughter, because that's when you saw Mildred being torn apart.
Mhm.
She lost herself. She lost herself. And I keep going back to what you said, you know, shopping the house, you know, looking for those pieces. That makes me sad that you've stored something away for 10 years and you forget about it. You know, it's just been waiting for you.
Yeah.
You know, you got me 10 years ago because you love me, and I'm just sitting here on a shelf. I'm
Yeah.
a part of you. I'm an expression of who you are.
And why are you holding on to it if you're not using it? And if you're not using it, then let someone else enjoy it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's and that's where I really hope people get inspiration from some of the classic movies, because there's so many things that if you watch enough of them, you start seeing the same pieces and you start seeing some of the similar sets, some of the similar furnitures. And so to me, this whole idea of why is it wrong to repeat? Why is it wrong? It's not repeating if you're creating a different experience. And something old is new again. So
Always.
and also, why couldn't you mix the old with the new? There are, much like how classic movies were, you know, they were very formulaic. However, they also pushed. They pushed lighting, they pushed the experience, the audience experiences were pushed with how they filmed them. And that's, if you love classic movies and you love entertaining, it should be your same mindset. Push your guests, push
Yes.
your own bounds of an experience, and use that as inspiration.
Experiment. Have fun. You always say that. Have
Yep.
fun.
Have fun. If you're not having fun, what the hell are you doing? It's like there should be zero pressure in a dinner party. And if you are stressing yourself out, you have the wrong audience coming, or I just need to send you some of my Xanax. Okay. I had to throw that in because I recently had that in Ireland. That is a deconstructed apple pie inside that.
What?
Yes. This chef, doesn't it look like a real apple?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the size of a real apple, but it's a completely deconstructed hodgepodge apple pie in that. And that is a white chocolate covering that he did, that are all hand painted. So to me, that's a way to spin the idea of apple pies and modernize it, right? It's like you don't need to give somebody a slice of pie. I mean, yes, 90% of the planet can't do this. I understand that. But it's the thought behind it is don't look at things for what they can be, not what they are.
Yeah.
Right? When I cut into that thing, I almost fell off my chair. And it was a complete mess inside. And it did not matter because the minute I cut into it, I got it. I understood it. But it is, I can't look at a slice of apple pie anymore and not think of this. And that's, to me, a chef or an event designer or, Sally, Johnny bringing guests over for a barbecue or a dinner party is just let that creativity and let that, what's the term about letting your freak flag fly? But your home, your rules, your inspiration,
Right.
your creativity.
Right. And to me, when you show that photo of the apple pie, it's so beautiful. And beauty matters.
Yep. It does.
Beauty matters.
Beauty doesn't mean flawless.
No, it doesn't mean perfect. It doesn't mean, a certain eye color or a certain weight or a certain, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about surrounding yourself with things and people that feed your spirit. That's beauty. When you go 100%. Through life, seeing it all around you, and you can create those moments.
Yep.
Yeah.
And and I never thought to take a picture of the backside of it, but he did a bruise in the back.
Really?
And I so appreciated the fact that, you look at magazines and you look at film today, and beauty is no longer defined by the jawline or the nose or the perfect, right? It is in the person, it is in how the person, we hope
it's in the experience.
It's in the experience. Sorry, I won't get on the sugar baker soapbox. But it is about how you present yourself in your authentic self, and flaws and all.
Yeah.
Flaws and all. The flaws in your events, the flaws in the films, the flaws in you are what make life completely unpredictable, which is what makes life beautiful.
And boy, this is so on point for the film. Like, there's every single character in Mildred Pierce is extremely flawed.
To the point of almost cartoonish.
Extremely flawed.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons I love Breakfast at Tiffany's. Mm-hmm. Because Holly and I call him George Peppard, but two very flawed humans.
Well, everybody around them was. The only one who wasn't flawed was the cat.
Yeah.
Right?
Our four-legged babies are perfect.
Exactly. And but look at how beautiful that film and those characters are.
Yeah.
And how it stands the test of time.
Yes. Because people resonate with imperfections.
Correct.
Like, they get it.
I look at Joan Crawford and everyone else in the women.
Yes.
And they were all glamazons. Every one of them. But they were such flawed characters, and that they endeared themselves. Had they played them like they looked, it would have been horrible.
It would have been boring. Yeah.
It would have been totally boring.
Yeah.
And that's where I also think you're right, that this movie resonates with people because they are real people. They're Hollywooded out, yes, makeup, lighting, all that other stuff. But could you see yourself in one of those characters? I know I could.
Yeah.
100% I could.
Yeah.
I might be Eve Arden with a glass in my hand, but that's a whole other conversation. Wait, I need to cough. No, I'm not Kay. But yeah, I think people just from a entertaining perspective is watch a movie like Mildred Pierce and find a scene that just speaks to you.
Yeah.
You
And
know
why?
how to recreate and take that and riff on it.
Yeah.
Like, I love the restaurant. Everything about the restaurant I adore. And it had nothing to do with the performances. It was the set. That's where I always get my inspiration, is I see something, one little thing, and I will run with it. I don't need to recreate the entire environment. I don't need to recreate being so specific on things.
Mhm.
And then I'm able to tell the story of why did I do this? And then you get a conversation starter. Well, there's a movie, Mildred Pierce, and blah, 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 blah. And she opens up a restaurant. And since I was a kid, the whiteness and just the crispness and the greenhouse just really made me think of how cool that would be. And that's kind of where this came from.
Yeah.
You've automatically started a conversation with your guest, and you've opened yourself up to that.
And the pot pie, it's comfort food.
Yes.
And that never goes out of style.
It never goes out of style. In fact, I am
Never goes
craving mashed potatoes and gravy to
I know.
business.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much, Ed. Thank you for suggesting Mildred Pierce, for folks who haven't seen it. Absolutely. Obviously it's hard for us to be biased because we love the film so much, but I think, I don't know, what are your thoughts for someone who's never seen a classic film before? What do you think? How do you think they'd react to this?
I would pose that as another question to the audience. If you've never seen it,
Yeah.
watch it.
Yeah.
And make a comment and tell Tami, what did you think?
Yeah. Really curious.
And to watch it not with the lens of today. You need to take the lens of today, and I was going to say, haha, jokingly, political correctness, but nope. Once again, don't go down that path, Ed. But look at it from the perspective of a 1940s woman who wasn't allowed to own a house, who wasn't allowed to have a credit card, who wasn't allowed to actually have a business in her own name, right? Those kind of things. And then tell us, what'd you think of that movie?
Yeah. I would love that. Yes. Yes. I'm looking forward to hearing people's responses. Looking forward to more shows with you. I love
So
doing
am I.
this. I love it.
I think I'm going to ask the audience one more question. Tami and I, should we do a movie that we both vehemently disagree on?
Or that we both hate?
Oh God, that list is long.
It is. But those films are important. But that would be fun too. Films that we disagree on, like whether it's good or bad or blah blah blah. Should have won the Oscar, didn't win the Oscar. There's a lot of points of disagreement that we can probably touch on, but then also bring to the table the films that we don't like and why we don't like them.
Oh, I'm sure between the two of us, we would have a couple controversial ones.
I think so. There are just films like I don't get.
Yes.
And this is considered like the top 10. Why? So anyway, but to your point, yeah, no, I would love feedback from folks. What would they like to see discussed? What kind of, what movies would you like us to talk about? And especially when it comes to marrying the films with an event.
Yeah.
With how to mirror that with an experience with friends and family.
Before we get off, I do have to say it's been really interesting with Wicked's release.
Yes.
The amount of classic Wizard of Oz mashups from an event perspective that have gone on. And when you have directors like John Chu who do little things like using the same font for Wicked as Wizard, right? It automatically becomes this tie-in, but it reinvigorates the original.
Yes. Yes.
So that people all of a sudden now want to bring Dorothy back, want to bring back a heart and a brain and all of that in there. That's what I think these classic movies can do from a social perspective, that you don't have to always rely on whatever's trending. You
Agreed.
have decades of ideas that are just sitting there ready to be streamed for you to just to gather thoughts.
Where can people find you, Mr. Perotti?
I would normally say on the post office wall, but no. They can find me on my website, which is edwardaperotti.com, or they can track me down on Instagram. I'm not that active, but I do post some
I'm
imagery and some
trying, you
events.
guys. I'm trying to get him active. I swear.
If somebody can, Tami is trying. If you only knew how much the camera and I giggle at each other. But no, you can definitely, I would say, go check out my website to understand the mindset and to understand that you can do all this. You just need to have the faith in your own creativity and your own voice. And then on Instagram, Perotti EA, and I post, like I said, I just came back from a couple-day event in Hawaii, and I'm starting to post some photos of the Pele lava inspired dinner that we did, where it truly looks like the entire area is encircled in the lava fire. So much fun.
I'm sure it was delicious, though.
Oh, it was so delicious.
Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us here. You know, whether you're watching the show or whether you're listening to us, you can find Some Like It Classic on Instagram at Like It Classic, and on Facebook, Some Like It Classic. You can find this podcast on JLJ Media, and it'll be airing on your favorite streaming platforms like iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify. I'm your host, Tami Goveia. This has been Edward Perotti. Until we meet again.
Thank you.